Hello. So as you must already know, Heroku is depreciating its free tiers as of the 28th of November. And that's really sad because over, I guess, 10 years or even longer, Heroku was the first place where a developer could deploy an application to production and see how it would look in a production environment versus a development environment. But this era is over, and personally, I don't see any sense of paying for a paid tier on Heroku where you can pay the same amount or approximately the same amount on other platforms. And the platform of choice for me is DigitalOcean. So here I've already deployed one application on DigitalOcean app platform that costs minimum $12 per month. That would be $7 for the database and $5 for the application itself. And I'm kind of satisfied, and it gives you a great possibility to have more control than you have in Heroku over your application. Now, there are droplets that are like containers, and they can potentially be cheaper, but apps on the app platform are much easier to manage, and it is much closer to what you'd get on Heroku. So in this episode we are going to deploy an application to the DigitalOcean app platform. And if you still do not have a DigitalOcean account, first of all, try to create one. Now here I've got this referral link, so if you use it, I will also add it in the video description. You'll get $200 for the start, and I will get 25 onto my credits. So win-win for everybody. Anyway, if you create a DigitalOcean account and go to billing, so there'll be a tax depending on the country you're working, you're creating the account from. So you can also try changing the billing address, and if the billing address is in the US, then there will be no additional tax. If it will be in the EU, then you'll pay around 20% more on everything you do in the DigitalOcean. So if you have a US address, then it's kind of going to be cheaper, everything by default. So when you're done with the creation of your account, you will go to apps and you can deploy a new application. To do it, you would go to create and you would select app. And I'm going to select one of the repositories that I already have. So I have already connected my GitHub to DigitalOcean, and I can select a repository. And the repository that I'm going to select is going to be this UR menu app. Now, before we continue, let's have a quick look and understanding of this application that I am going to deploy. So imagine you don't know anything about this application yet and you want to deploy it. So let's have a quick look at this application in development. Now, when I see an application that I haven't worked with before and I need to understand something, the first place I go is the gem file. So yeah, the gem file. I see it's running Ruby 3.1, Rails 7, input maps for JavaScript, and yeah, it's running Puma. Okay, so well, everything is nearly default Rails 7, and yeah, it's also got Redis as most of the default stuff on Rails 7. We need Redis for turbo broadcasts. Now, we are going to check Rails application credentials, whether the application is using any credentials. No, as you see, all the credentials files are lines are commented out, so we don't use any secret credentials in this application at the moment. But we still need a master key. So I've deleted the previous credentials by ML, and I've generated a new master key by typing editor vim rails credentials edit. So now I'll type it once again, and as I got a master key, it can decrypt credentials via ML. So I'm going to exit Vim, and okay, I've had a look at the gem file, so just a simple Rails 7 application. Let's have a look at our roots. So we don't have device, we don't have current user as I see, and we've got just a few different roots. And we've got an admin namespace. So what is this admin namespace? Maybe we have some kind of admin that we can log in with. Let's have a look. I'm going to our app controllers, and here we've got this admin orders and stats, and they belong to secured controller. So secured controller, here it is, we have some kind of basic HTTP authentication. So to access the admin pages, we will need to use this username and this password. Okay, now let's try running this application locally. So I've run bundle, run railsdb create, I've run railsdb seed. If I look into the seeds, there are actually some seeds here. And let's try run this application locally. I will start a server by saying rails server, and let's have a look at it. So this application is a basic like online menu ordering application. So here I can select a few things, add them to cart. So I will add like 3 bounties, I will add 1 sweet like this, or 2, I'll add some Raffaellos, I'll go to my cart. Yeah, here is my cart. And you see I have a bunch of items in my cart. I can remove some items if I want, or I can complete my order. And if I complete my order, let me display. So if I click complete order, then it appears in the orders in progress. And you know, like you go to McDonald's and you see all these screens with like the orders that have been prepared. So the same way you would be able to see orders in progress. So there is one that is done and one that is submitted. And users that have access to this admin, they can go to manage orders. So here I will go to manage orders, and I can change the status of the processing of the order. So like I see from the admin side, okay, this order has appeared. I can have a look at the items in the order, and I can say, okay, I'm going to start working on this order. So I update the status, and everybody who's watching this page of the queue receives a broadcast, a turbo broadcast, that the status of this order has changed. So I'm changing to delivery and to done. And you see there are already 0 orders in progress. So the application is using Hotwire broadcasts for delivering this, and Hotwire broadcasts require Redis. This is another important thing you need to know to be able to run a Rails 7 application that uses Hotwire. And one more thing, if you look at Gemfile log, you would have a look at the platforms, and you would need to ensure that you have the Linux platform. Otherwise, you would have problems with running the application. Okay, enough about this application. Let me comment the changes that I've created. So here I've got this updated credentials file. Let's save it and push. And the name of the application on GitHub is QR Menu App. So let me finally start this application on the DigitalOcean Apps platform. So I'm going to create. I think I've done it here already. Yeah, I want to create. I'm selecting GitHub, and I will select QR Menu App. So I'm going to use the main branch, and let's click next. Now I'm also selecting auto deploy, and actually if you don't select auto deploy from the main branch, then I'm not sure how you can select it once again. So usually it's better to have auto deploy. I'm clicking next, and here are the resources. So this is what you're going to pay for. So I will go and click edit plan. Okay, everything looks fine here. Let's go back. Yeah, here is edit plan, and you see by default it says this one, but the one that is $12 per month. But you can select something cheaper. So you can select this basic thing, and by default it's $10 per month, but you can select a cheaper tier, so $5 per month. So a few clicks and you selected the cheapest tier, and that's actually enough to get you going for the beginning. You can always scale it up. Now I'm going back, and I'm going to add some resources. So you can say detect from source code, but usually I would explicitly say that I want to add a database. So I would say add, and it's going to be a Postgresql database. And the cheapest one is $7 per month. And you see it's not a production-ready database, but it is the cheapest one. The cheapest production-ready one is around 12, I guess, dollars per month. So anyway, $7. I'm saying create and attach. So we've got our application and we have got our database. Okay, and let's continue. I'm going to click next, and we've got environment variables. Now this is also really important. So for our application, we're going to add our Rails master key. So if you go and search for Rails master key, So the Rails master key is the one that you've got in master.key. So you will need this key. Without it, your application will, well, just not run. So we've got the Rails master key, but it's not the only variable that you will need. Let's actually have some inspiration from a Heroku application. So I will take one of the Heroku apps I've got. Let's take this one, for example. I'll go to settings, reveal configure variables, and you see Heroku did a lot of stuff for you that you didn't have to think about. So you will need to set these things yourself on DigitalOcean and on any other place where you are deploying your code. So we're going to set our rack environment. Yeah, let's actually just say bulk editor. So Rails master key rack env equals production, then Rails env equals production, then Rails log to std out enabled. If you don't make it enabled, then you will see no logs. So enabled. Then Rails serve static files also enabled. Otherwise your CSS and JS will not load. And we have our Rails master key. And our secret key base is available inside our Rails credentials. So we don't need to serve the secret key base separately. Let's again go to editor vim Rails credentials edit, and here is our secret key base. So we are not serving it separately. But if you were not using Rails credentials, you could just serve the secret key base. Anyway, we have added these environment variables, so the master key, and a few settings for our application. And let's click save. Okay, and again I'm clicking save and clicking next. So now you're deciding where you want to deploy. It can be London, it can be any other region that is closest to where your application users are. So you should think of choosing a region that is close not to where you are, but to where the biggest quantity of your users are. That way they will have the best experience. So anyway, it can be London for me, that's fine. And I'm clicking next. And you see we've got our application, we've got our database. Same on Heroku, you would have a database URL, but we'll come back to that later. And you see it says it would be $5 plus $7 a month. And I'm clicking create resources. And the application is being created and is being built. Okay, so it took around 7 minutes to deploy, and here it shows that the build was successful and that the deployment was successful. So it says deployed successfully, and going up you see it was provided a URL, and you can also click live app. So if you click, it says sorry, something went wrong. Now let's see what went wrong. I will go to runtime logs. And they are available, these runtime logs are available because we added the environment variable to send the logs. So I'm going to settings, to components, to the application component, QR menu app, and here we have this Rails log to std out enabled. If it was not enabled, then the runtime logs would not be updated. But again, what's the problem? Active record connection not established. So we don't have the connection to the database. We can also try to check the connection to the database by going to the console. So this is kind of a web console for your Rails application. I'm going to Rails console. And let's see if something does get started. Okay, we've got the Rails console. Let's try getting something from our application. I'll go to schema, for example, and we have menu items, or we have orders. Let's say order.count. And you see the connection is not established. So the problem is that we have created a Postgresql database, but we did not attach it to our application. So now we need to attach our Postgres database. We can go to our database in our settings. So if we go to our database And here we see that it is, yes, a dev database, and we need to get the connection details for this database. So you see on Heroku we have this database URL, and there's some kind of long URL. So we're going to get the same kind of URL for our DigitalOcean database that we have created. So I'm going to this connection details and click View. Here we have the connection parameters. I'm going to use the connection string. So here we have the connection string. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to add this connection string to our application here. So I'm going to this other component, our menu app. And in all these environment variables, where are they? Environment variables. I am going to add this database URL. So here it is, and I'm going to, yes, say that it is the database URL. Okay. And now it is going to redeploy the application. So you see it's building the application again, because each time you change something in the settings, it's going to redeploy the application. Okay, and again the application is deployed, so let's try going to the live application, and yeah, we still have this sorry, but something is wrong. So let's have a look what's wrong this time. I'm going back to the runtime logs of the application, and what do we have? So statement invalid, relation orders does not exist. So here the problem is that we just need to run rails-db migrate. So the easiest way would be to go to the console, and here you would say rails-db migrate. But the solution would require you to run rails-db migrate each time you deploy with new changes in the database. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to say rails-db migrate inside the settings of the application. So each time when we deploy the application, we're going to run the migrations. So here I'm going to find, again, going not to the app settings, but to the component settings. Here is our application component, and here I'm going to find the build command. So here is the build command and the run command, and inside the run command, before running the Rails server, I'm going to say rails-db migrate, and this should do it. So the expectation is that each time before the application is started with the new deployment, we're going to run rails-db migrate. So I'm going to save, and again, considering that we've done some changes in the application settings, it is redeploying the application, and I will expect it to run the migrations. We can go to the deploy logs and monitor what happens. Okay, so once again it says that the application has been deployed, and here we see our build logs and our deploy logs. And if I go to our deploy logs, we see that the application has been started, but before the application has been started, all these migrations have been run. So the migrations have been run. Okay, I'm going back to the application, and I will see, yes, I see the menu. Now, of course, I didn't have anything seeded, so I can actually try seeding it now. And here we also see there was an error once again. Let's see what kind of error this was. I'm going to the runtime logs of the application. Yeah, let's give it a moment. Let me refresh, and I'll refresh once again. Yeah, apparently it needs some time. Maybe it's because I've just added a new application. Okay, this time it seems to be working. Okay, so yeah, here's some kind of error, and the error is with socket connection, so I can assume that it is because I don't have Redis running. Yes, so here I see the problem with Redis. Why do I have the problem with Redis? Because when going to this menu page, /menu, I have a turbo broadcast from this page. So let me go to menu index in the code, and here I will have, or maybe not here, broadcast. Let's see where we have broadcasts, turbo stream from. Okay, so on the order page and on the queue page. So I have a turbo stream from orders. And to establish this turbo stream, we would need a Redis connection. So the application doesn't work now because we don't have Redis connected. So now I will need to connect Redis to the application. So to connect Redis, I will need to go to databases and create a new database. So here I already have one database. I'm going to create a new database. And yeah, the origin is London, that's fine. I already have a Postgresql database, and now I will need a Redis database. And we see that unfortunately the cheapest plan is $15 per month. So it already puts our price to 5 plus 7 plus 15, so that's $29 per month if our application does need Redis. So if our application is using the gem Redis or well, Sidekick, or if we are using the top stream broadcasts, then we will need Redis. So yeah, the name of the Redis cluster, let me name it QR menu app Redis. We don't need any tags, or actually we can say QR menu app, okay. And I'm creating this database cluster. Now it will take a few minutes possibly to create the application, but we already have our connection parameters. So I'm going to take the connection string, I will copy it, and I will add this connection string to our application. I'm going back to apps. Here is the app that we just created. Going to settings, going to the settings of the Rails application, and here I'm going to connect this Redis database that we are creating at the moment in our databases. So here we have 6 environment variables. I'm going to add one more. I will say Redis URL and add this variable. And let's have a look at where we have this Redis URL in our code. So I will search for Redis URL, and here you see we have config cable YML, and here we would look for the Redis URL in our environment variables for production. Okay, so I'm going to click save. And now again it's trying to redeploy our application. I hope there will not be a collision that our database for Redis is not ready yet. You see it's still been prepared, but our application is already being deployed. So possibly I will have to redeploy or force redeploy the application once more. Maybe I should have first waited for the Redis application to be fully created and then connected to our app, because now it's trying to redeploy our application and it might give an error. But anyway, let's wait and see. Okay, so now I see that the database has been deployed. Let's have a look at our application. Okay, not droplets, but I should have gone to apps. So going to apps. Here is our app. The app has, well, also been deployed. Let's open the app. And yeah, it seems to be working. So let me open the app in a new tab and see if the top broadcasts part that uses Redis actually works. But before this, I would need to add some records to the database. So I will need to run the seeds. To run seeds, I'm going to go to the console and say Rails DB seed. And this should, well, run our seeds. So yeah, it must have worked. Let's go back to the application. I will refresh, and you see some records have been created. So I will try to add some records to my code. So add in a few of these. You see there is no full page refresh, looks fine. I'll go to the code. On the other screen, I'm going to the queue. I will say complete order, and you see an item has appeared in the queue. So Redis and TurboStream broadcasts are working. Looks quite satisfying to me. So yeah, here is how we deployed a Ruby on Rails 7 application with a Postgresql database and with Redis to production. But let's go further. Let's add a custom domain. So at the moment we don't have a domain, and if we go to the app settings, already not the application, not the Rails application settings, but the whole app settings, here we have these domains. So let's add a domain. Let me go to Namecheap, and here I have a few domains. So let's see. I will connect this domain, let's say Very30. I'm not using it for anything at the moment, I guess. Let's just check. No, I'm not using it. Okay, so I'm going to connect this domain very30.com. So I'm going to our domains. I'm going to add a new domain, so it's going to be very30.com, like very certified or whatever. And I manage my domain, and I'm going to create a CNAME and add this alias. So I'm going to the domain settings, I'm going to advanced DNS, And here I already have some kind of CNames. I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to create a few new ones. So these ones were used in Heroku previously. And these ones are used to get the domain verified on Amazon. So I'm going to create a CName. It's going to be @ and the DigitalOcean application. So @ is when we are using the bare domain, and if we are using www, then we'll add the www one. So I'm saying @domain, and yes, I'm also going to add the www to redirect to the same application. So I will say www.verycerty.com. So again, I manage my domain, and it says www CName should redirect to this Coral app. So I'm going back to Namecheap, going to create a CName record, www, and here's the target. Save the changes, so I'm done with Namecheap, and let's click Add Domain. And the domains are being added on the DigitalOcean side. Now you see it's deploying once again, so let's wait for the deployment to be complete. Okay, it says it's complete. Let's go to the live application. Now it says it's got some trouble, maybe because it requires a few minutes for the DNS settings to be updated and for it to work. So here, sometimes when updating like domain related stuff, you just need to wait for a little time. So let's wait. Okay, so the domain still doesn't seem to be working, and I've been waiting for like 20 minutes now, and I've tried pinging the CName of the domain in some kind of DNS checker tool. It does find the domain name, so really it can take longer to make the domain work. But from the settings perspective, we've done everything that we needed. We've added the domains, and we've added the CName records. So we just need to wait until they get refreshed. And a final touch to our deployment would be log forwarding. So log forwarding is here, and what it allows us to do, it allows us to connect a specialized application to which we would send all the logs of our application. So all the logs that we see in runtime logs, you see now I click runtime logs and we see just a tiny bit of history. And different applications like Datadog or Papertrail allow you to keep a big history of logs and to potentially analyze these logs or search for something specific in your logs. So a good practice for production applications would be to use log forwarding tools like Papertrail for an example. So Papertrail by default does have a free tier, and we're going to connect it. So here, if I go to my dashboard, I already have just created an account on Papertrail, and I already have one application connected. I'm going to create one more Papertrail application. So I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to add a new log destination. So I'm going to click create log destination. I will name it, how do I name this application? QR menu app. So QR menu app. Allow logs. Click and create. And here we have this log destination. So it is 52384. And I'm going to add this log destination in our application settings. So I'm going here, going to our application settings, log forwarding. Maybe I actually need to do it on our app level settings. So here I'm going to go to log forwarding. I'm going to add Papertrail and the endpoint. So I've added this endpoint. And now I expect to be able to go to the dashboard in Papertrail. Here I must see already not one system but two systems. Maybe I need to actually send some kind of logs. So I'll try again to refresh this application. Okay, it still doesn't work. So I will go to this domain name that was provided by DigitalOcean. Where is it? Domains. Here's this domain. I'm going to this domain, and well, let's try pushing some logs. So I'll also open the runtime logs here. So let me, I don't know, add something to the code. Yeah, you see it's not super comfortable to see stuff here, but you see there was a toba stream rendered, menu item 88. I will click once again. There was again a toba stream. I will click once again. Okay, it's been a bit slow, maybe because the application has just been deployed for, well, the first time. It's still not working on full speed. So I guess that's okay. So let me add some more items and see if we see them in the logs. I'm adding this item. You see we have menu item ID 9, toba stream, and let's see if we already are sending these logs to PaperTrail. So I will refresh the dashboard once again, and I still don't see the second system. Interesting. Okay, so now I do see this Coral app from DigitalOcean in our PaperTrail account, and what I had to do is go to the DigitalOcean application, go to Actions, Force Rebuild and Deploy, and Deploy. And when I did it, it sent the information to PaperTrail, and PaperTrail registered this second system, the Coral app. So now if I go to this Coral app, in PaperTrail, I will see the whole log history. And let me try something. I'm just going to the application here. I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to, click on a few pages. And you see all these logs are being registered in PaperTrail. So you have the whole log history. And that's about it. I think it was quite a long video, but covered a lot of stuff. So we've created a new app on DigitalOcean app platform. We've set up a Redis database. We've set up a regular database. We've set up domain names. We've set up log forwarding. And importantly, we've set up our application variables. So here we have our environment variables, the Rails master key, the environments, the login for PaperTrail, and for being able to see the logs in runtime logs. We've set up the Rails self-static file so that the CSS and JS are bundled, the database URL and Redis URL, so that our Rails application on DigitalOcean can communicate with our Redis and with our Postgresql application on DigitalOcean. And we've also added Rails DB migrate before Rails server on the run command, so that we don't have to run Rails DB migrate each time we deploy. And that's about it. Thanks for your attention, and have a great experience deploying your Rails applications in the future. Goodbye.